Shaq, let's start with this one. And at half-time, Liverpool should have been more than a goal up. They weren't. They were profligate in front of goal, like the FA Cup tie, and ended up 2-1 down. So they get a point out of it, but they'll feel like they should have had 3, but they nearly ended up with none. What did you make of it today?
Yeah, I agree with you, Mark. I feel so much of today's game replicated what we saw in the FA Cup. And at the time, I remember I was on FC after that FA Cup game. I described Liverpool as being a little bit arrogant when they were in the lead. And I was starting to feel that way when they were 1-up. I thought you saw the tempo, Liverpool's tempo, certainly in the attacking third and the way they pass the ball, just drop a little bit and focus more on possession, which I never really feel is what Liverpool are about. They keep the tempo high and they run you into the ground. But all of a sudden, they started getting to the edge of the box and then bringing the ball all the way back out. In fact, that's exactly how Manchester United's opening goal came. In comfortable possession, just outside of Manchester United's box, Liverpool kind of recirculated the ball all the way back across. And yes, Kwanzaa should have gotten his head up and had a little look around. But I felt that mistake was a little bit symptomatic of how Liverpool had been playing for 5 or 10 minutes before. Credit Bruno Fernandes for his anticipation and finish, but I thought so much of it was Liverpool's own doing. And then all of a sudden, while at 1-0 with Liverpool in the lead, I thought you'd seen the wind kind of go out of Manchester United's sail. All of a sudden, that goal brought this tie back to life, and Liverpool Liverpool then kind of struggled to re-find their own rhythm.
Yeah, 14 shots, Gab, for Liverpool in the first half, just the one goal. Not one shot from Manchester United. First time that's happened in the Premier League at Old Trafford since October 2015. So what changed in the second half?
Well, I think for all of Erik Ten Hag's ills and failings, which so many people have pointed out, I think it's still pretty obvious that this team, they still kind of listen to him when they're on the pitch, and they don't give up, and they keep trying. And when you're gifted a goal out of, I don't want to say out of nothing, because obviously it's out of Kwanzaa's mistake, but it's also out of the fact that Bruno Fernandes has the foresight and the chutzpah to go and shoot from there. All of a sudden, crowd gets back into it, and you really believe even more that you can get back into the game. A lot of this is on emotion. And yeah, I agree to a point with what Shaka said. I don't blame United for saying, all right, let's just kind of manage the game in the first 15 minutes in the second half. Then at the hour mark, he's going to make, Ten Hag's eventually going to make his substitutions, and then, we'll score another couple goals and put this away. Although we really should have put it away in the first half with those 2 solid misses. I don't blame them so much. I mean, I think to some degree you have to manage, you have to kind of manage your energy, especially when, you've got big Europa League clash coming up on Thursday and you're in this title race. But I also kind of want to give credit to Manchester United for not giving in the first half. And then when they got that gift, kind of continuing to push and not crumbling after that either.
I make no apologies for going through this chronologically, because there's a lot to get through. And Shaka, inside 60 seconds, there's that opportunity. Now, the ball ends up in the back of the net, but Bruno Fernandes has got to play it quicker. He's got to play it a step quicker before Garnacho's in an offside position. And if you remember the FA Cup time, McTominay gets the opening goal after 10 minutes, I think it was, for Manchester United. That was their opportunity. It was a very open first 5 minutes. That was the chance. And if there's one player you want to time the ball perfectly, it would be Bruno Fernandes, but not this time.
Yeah, listen, I think you're absolutely right. And I mean, for all of my criticism of Manchester United, particularly in that first half, I thought they started the game really, really well. As you would expect from Manchester United at Old Trafford against a heated rival like Liverpool. And yes, Bruno Fernandes could have done a little bit better in the timing of his pass, or maybe we want to say Garnacho could have just held off just a little bit more. But it certainly was a good start. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and be overly critical of either of those two players in the opening minutes, offsides happen. And while those are or can be potentially defining moments, at the same time, you've got to give the defending team a little bit of credit for how they read the game themselves. So I'm not about to cast blame on anybody for that, and certainly if it scores, it changes the early outlook. But these things happen. That's not an issue for me. More to the point, I thought Manchester United started really brightly, matched Liverpool in many departments. But then the old cliche, as any visiting team, you have to kind of ride out that opening 15 minutes and play your way into it. And I thought that's exactly what Liverpool did. They rode that early start from Manchester United, and from then in, it was their game to dictate, and I thought they did so. Building on from that, I thought, yes, you take the lead, but disappointing that not only do you not build on it because you had the chances to, but as I said, I just felt at times Liverpool seemed to more want to control the game than kill it off, and I just don't think that's something that Liverpool do as well.
Before we get to the goals and analyse them, Gab, which of these first half chances for Liverpool do you think was the best one? 2.5 minutes gone. Salah to Szoboszlai, but well saved by Onana. 19th minute, Robertson's low cross from the left, Szoboszlai wide from 10 yards. 33 minutes, counter-attack, Luis Diaz to Salah, but he played it just behind him and the shot was saved. 35th minute, Nunez with the shot just over, and Salah firing over in the 36th minute.
I think probably the Szoboszlai one set up by Robertson, and then also the Salah one at the end. It's Mo Salah after all. Even the one that was behind him, frankly, you are passing the ball to Mo Salah. You hold him to a higher standard. The chances were, as you just rattled them off. What is that? Half a dozen?
Yeah.
Very clear-cut chances in the first half, in addition to the goal. If you're Liverpool, that's where you kick yourself. In fact, I have a little stress toy here that you're supposed to squeeze.
Have you broken it?
I might send it up to Anfield.
No wonder. What about the goal, Shaq? And from a goalkeeping perspective, there's nothing you can do with it. You've got to rely on whether you're zonal, whether you're man-to-man marking, players doing their job. And it's the flick on by Nunez from Robertson's corner. But Kobbie Mainoo's lost his man. Now, I don't want to be too critical of individuals. Things like that happen. But it must be so easy. All it takes is one breakdown in communication, and suddenly Liverpool have got the opening goal.
Listen, I have always been very critical of zonal marking from set pieces. And I know I get the counter argument that so many people throw about the stats and how it backs up zonal marking as opposed to man-to-man. I just feel that as a player, you have a responsibility for your man from that set piece. And in recognizing and carrying out that responsibility, I think it lends itself to other aspects of the game that you will always be counted, that you don't just pass your man off, you aren't just responsible for a zone. And this isn't just about set pieces. As I say, my belief is around wider aspects of the game. So I've never been a huge fan of it. I also think there's something to be said psychologically in a game where you are winning those one-on-one battles from set pieces, how that translates to other departments on the park during the course of a game. So from the time you see Manchester United line up the way that they are, you know that there's going to be a space somewhere around. And we've seen time and time again how in this game, a lot of times the old basketball style pick and roll, where a player just blocks the run of a defender to allow somebody else to run free. No pick and roll was needed here. Mainoo just loses his man. Diaz just peels off. And let's be honest, Diaz from set pieces isn't, you would think, that great a threat. But he finds space. So while everybody's attracted to that first ball, including those who started off fairly zonally, it just takes one little flick on, and Diaz, who's not going to trouble anybody in the air, is an acres of space, far post. Very good volley. Let's take nothing away from Diaz, from the finish. But again, for me, to see somebody that free in your box, set piece or not, is concerning.
Okay, we've had the analysis of the opening goal from Shaka. Gab, you can get the equaliser. And I want to take you back to last month. Liverpool played Manchester City. Connor Bradley started at right back. Jarell Quansah started at right centre back. And City identified that as an issue because they knew that Bradley was going to get forward and there'd be space in behind. I'm sure United did as well when they saw the team lineups. However, they couldn't exploit. And it was a mistake by Quansah, who was probably only playing because of a challenge by a Sheffield United player on Konate 3 days ago. Even though Konate was able to continue and finish the game, he was unable to play in this one. Does it go down just as one of those things, a mistake, or can you be more critical than that? And it's a really good finish by Bruno Fernandes.
It's obviously a mistake. The kid probably feels absolutely terrible now. I think he obviously does see Bruno. I think what he misjudges, obviously it's a mistake on the pass. He probably also, Bruno is not the quickest player, but he's also not immobile. And I think that's what happens. He gets his spacing wrong. Maybe he scanned a little too early and then hit the pass. Whatever. I think these things happen. They're the kind of things that are infuriating. Sometimes, though, when I see a mistake that is so craven, so extreme, I think as a coach or somebody analyzing it, you're not even going to be that harsh on them because it's so uncharacteristic, right? It's such an obvious error. I mean, Shaka, tell me, this isn't even something. Sometimes we see goalkeepers make howlers. It's not something where the manager even needs to talk to them, right? When it's so extreme like that.
Yeah, I absolutely. I'm with you, Gab. It's a mistake. It'll go down as a Quansah mistake, rightly so. I don't think Klopp has an awful lot to say about it, other than listen, if you're going to miss-hit a pass, miss-hit it behind Virgil van Dijk, because that way, if he's put under pressure, he can just knock it back to Kelleher. So that's the only kind of learning point I think that Jurgen Klopp shares with Quansah here. He doesn't make this too much of an issue, even though Quansah may be feeling terribly about it. As I said, I felt that mistake came as a result of other issues for Liverpool. And again, mistakes are part of the game. It's kind of what premeditates that. And I feel that Liverpool themselves had just stopped pressing Manchester United forward as we know they can. And all of a sudden, that kind of lull, it brings the mistake.
I think that's a good point, Shaq, because in the 54th minute, 4 minutes after that equalising goal, United, through a mistake by Garnacho, have basically left themselves with a 2 against 5, and Liverpool made a mess of it. Darwin Núñez, it wasn't a shot, it wasn't a cross, it was a nothing. He could have cut it back and it might have ended up with a goal. But then they didn't get another chance until Manchester United took the lead. Now, to your point with Manchester United taking the lead, just seeing Van Dijk and Robertson afterwards, and especially seeing Jurgen Klopp, when you see the high angle, there's far too much of a gap between the defence, which is holding a good line, but the midfield. Endo doesn't make the challenge, and it's a brilliant finish from Mainoo. Could you have seen it coming, given what Shaq's said, Gab?
Okay, so I saw this. I saw Klopp absolutely furious. I saw Robertson about it. I saw what we all saw.
Yep.
And here I'm going to defer to the people who played at the highest level or have kept goal against people who could do stuff like this. Yes, could they have gotten closer? Could they have been more proactive? Maybe. But, I mean, Mainoo still has an absolute ton to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's also something about you do not expect an 18-year-old kid to get the ball, turn, and whip a finish like that. I mean, am I wrong here? I'm just wondering, is this narrative being led by the fact that Klopp was so angry? And obviously he knows more than we do, but I mean, I thought that was pretty good. I think this is a very low percentage shot.
Oh, it's a great goal. But what we're trying to analyze is what was Klopp angry about the most, Shaka?
He's angry because Liverpool did not close his spaces, starting in midfield. This isn't it. And again, the kind of knock-on effect, I think, is the point that Jurgen Klopp is making here. That when you don't close the spaces in midfield, when you don't force Manchester United to at least play under pressure through midfield, force them either back or maybe to misdirect that pass or whatever it is, but have them under pressure, then all of a sudden everybody starts backing off a couple of yards, and before you know it, you're on the edge of your box, and Mainoo has a couple of yards of space to work with. Now, to Gab's point, let's not take anything away from Kobbie Mainoo's finish. I mean, it really was something special. Everything about it. I mean, we could be having such a different conversation because though Klopp was angry because they don't close spaces, Mainoo had to thread the eye of a needle to get that by Kelleher. So you take that for what it is. But I think the bigger point that Jurgen Klopp is making is when you don't step up in midfield, that means that your back four can't get closer to strikers. That means that space in between defense and midfield isn't as tight as you want it to be. And then all of a sudden, Kobbie Mainoo has got a couple of yards of space. That's from the Klopp perspective. And I think that is the point that he was trying to make. And this coming at a time where, again, because of the mistake, all of a sudden, Old Trafford gets back up in terms of their noise. There's a game on, and you have to be able to ride out these emotional upturns when you're away from home. You've got to be able to continue playing your game and deny Manchester United any kind of onus in terms of, well, now they're playing well. Mm-hmm. Just sometimes you just have to ride that storm out, and again, Liverpool did not do that well.
So 23.
I guess what I struggle with a little bit, and maybe it's the fact that I'm Italian, I look into this. The whole notion that, I mean, I've always felt, even in the past when Liverpool won titles, they said, man, they can't play at this breakneck speed and with this high press the whole time, and they'll pay a price for it. And then obviously they generally don't. But in this game, they're taking your foot off the gas, because I take your point, Shaka, but and Klopp's point clearly. Equally, if you squeeze the space up, you still have Garnacho and Rashford there up against Bradley, who goes forward, Quant's on that right side, who just made a mistake, could be playing in his mind, Robertson, who's back from injury but hasn't been back that long, and you still have the threat of the ball behind. So equally, not being so aggressive in the press and kind of inviting them on, knowing that in terms of creativity in this side, Bruno Fernandes apart, there's not that many people who are going to beat you. I don't know. I don't know that was that's such a bad tactic for Liverpool to employ, if that's what they were trying to do.
No, I to that point, Gab, if I'm Liverpool, I'm disappointed in the press. And while, yes, you still have the threat of Garnacho and Rashford, the two players you pick out, that threat was there in the first half, and Manchester United didn't get a shot on target. So, if when you play that high press, Manchester United don't get a sniff, then the way to kill things, to kill the game off or quieten the crowd back down, is to again employ that high press and just stifle the game in the attacking half, if not the attacking third.
There's 23 minutes remaining, and it becomes an attacking tsunami. Liverpool are on autopilot, just pouring bodies forward. And it seemed at one stage it was going to be a case of when, not if, they got the equaliser. And they did. Now, Gab, Wan-Bissaka is a tackle machine. He's one of the best at one-on-one, but sometimes he just dives in a little bit too often or mistimes it. No complaints about the penalty. It's just one of these things. Again, we spoke about Quanza's mistake. That's a mistake by a defender that could have been avoided.
Yeah, and I think Elliott was also pretty clever, because
he was.
I think he knows, the minute he senses it, he can't knock the ball ahead, or if he knocks the ball ahead, there's a chance with the angle that Wan-Bissaka takes on his tackle that Wan-Bissaka might get the ball. So he just kind of keeps it sort of to the side, on the opposite side, almost as if his body's between him and Wan-Bissaka, and Wan-Bissaka fouls him. And it's 100% a penalty. I think Elliott protects the ball very well there. And yeah, it's the kind of thing where, it is another mistake, not as egregious perhaps as Quanza's, but I appreciate what you said about Wan-Bissaka being a tackling machine and so on, I think back to, the old sort of Sir Alex anecdote about letting go of Jaap Stam because his tackles had gone down. But in fact, if you're defending properly, you don't necessarily need to win too many tackles, right? If you're defending properly collectively and so on. I mean, tackles are a really poor metric, I think, to judge defenders by.
I am far more critical of the Wan-Bissaka tackle than I am of the Kwanzaa mistake.
Okay.
They're both mistakes, absolutely, that cost their team, certainly in the moment. But while you can sympathize with a misplayed pass, no defender needs to be leaving their feet in their box. I mean, that is just, you are just begging for a decision to go against you. Listen, I like Wan-Bissaka. As a one-on-one defender, I think there are a few better in the league. But you are in your box. Never mind the fact that Elliott is running across the top of the box. He's not really running to goal. There is absolutely no reason, and in my mind, no excusing going to feet in your own box in that manner. And maybe it may be terrible to draw comparisons with somebody like Virgil van Dijk, widely regarded as the best player, best defender in the league. I will bet you we can count on one hand the number of times that Virgil van Dijk leaves his feet in his own box during the course of a season. You simply don't. You are giving the referee a decision to make. So I am far more critical of Wan-Bissaka and that tackle. I just thought it was a really poor decision, and one ultimately that cost Manchester United.
All right, Shaq, put yourself in the gloves and the feet of Andre Onana. I don't know if you're aware as a goalkeeper that the person that's about to try and score from you from 12 yards has missed 4 of his last 11. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to read him? Are you trying to look at his eyes? Are you trying to stay up as much as possible? He's taken a really good penalty, Salah. Bottom line is he scores. If Onana goes the other way, he probably saves it. But that was a pressure moment. And Mo Salah, again, coming up with the goods. 14th time that he scored against Manchester United. But what are you doing as a goalkeeper when you're facing Mo Salah?
I mean, the interesting thing is, and the bigger picture to this is McAllister stands at the penalty spot or just behind it with the ball in his hand. So you're going through a number of things in your head. You're thinking that maybe that he's going to take it because he scored a couple previously. So you're thinking back to his preferred side, where he scored, his run up, the timings of it, and then all of a sudden he hands the ball over to Mo Salah. So now you have to switch and think about all of those things all over again. Which is Mo Salah's preferred side? Where did he miss? What was his run up like? And then try to make a decision based on all those things, including those penalties that he missed / was saved, and which side that was. Leaning into that, you're just kind of looking at him and seeing, trying to figure out his own body language, what his own thinking may be. So there's a lot as a goalkeeper that you're trying to figure out in a short moment of time in deciding your side, which side you go to. This isn't an Xbox game that you press X and O and it kind of figures it out for you. So I do sympathize with saying that. Maybe saying sympathize isn't the right word, because as a goalkeeper you're not expected to save it. They're tough to save at the best of times, let alone when it's at the feet of Mo Salah.